Now on BBC One, the 10 o'clock news with Hugh Edwards in Jerusalem and Darren Jordan in London.
In southern Lebanon, the plight of thousands trapped by the fighting is revealed. Desperate to be rescued and begging for food, they seek any means of escape. But a convoy taking some to safety comes under fire.
No, leave it, come on, we'll get shelled again.
We have a report from the scene. In Washington, still no call for an immediate ceasefire from George Bush and Tony Blair.
The brutal reality of the situation is that we're only going to get violence stopped and stability introduced on the basis of clear principles.
And one Israeli general tells us it would take another 2 months to deal with Hezbollah.
The other headlines tonight: jail for life, the church minister who abused dozens of boys after he'd been questioned by police. And anger as the two officers who shot dead Jean-Charles de Menezes returned to firearms duty.
And here in the east, parents and children on hunger strike at Yaleswood Immigration Centre. And murder in broad daylight. A man stabbed to death in the middle of Corby. We'll have those stories at 10:30.
Good evening from Jerusalem. The plight of thousands of people trapped by the fighting in southern Lebanon is now becoming clearer. Aid agencies say it's been impossible to get food and medicines to remote villages because of the heavy shelling. And today, one convoy, which did manage to get through, came under fire as it tried to take people to safety. Well, this was the route taken by today's convoy. It started from the port of Tyre and headed for Yaroun, but because of shelling, it was forced to turn around at Ramesh. And the vehicles were hit as they made their way back. The BBC's Fergal Keane and cameraman Darren Conway were travelling with them, and they sent this report.
We headed out into a landscape blasted by war, travelling from silence to silence. Coming against us, lines of refugees fleeing the violence. Abandoned farm animals wandered the roads as we passed through deserted villages. And then the sound of shelling from nearby.
Well, you can hear the Israelis now are shelling from the other side of the border, and they're just across the hillside from us here. It's very hard to guess exactly what they're aiming at, but all we know is we can hear the bangs, quite a few of them now, and the shelling is heading in this direction.
By phone, we heard from the Israeli military that Hezbollah had staged an attack. The shelling was their response. Eventually, we reached the village of Ramesh. People came surging up to tell us of what was happening to them.
Kill men, women, children, everything from this village coming. Look, the fire there from my village.
This old man gestured to us for food and water. There's nothing to eat or to drink, he told us. Here, the filthy pond they now depend on for water. And then, in a dark basement of the Church of St. George, we found people in a pitiful state. This old woman is paralysed from the waist down. They are paying the price for a war in which Israel has wreaked massive retribution for the violence started by Hezbollah. Here they showed us a bottle of the pond water they have to drink.
This is one of the terrible places that war creates. Now, you look around here at the conditions these people are living in, with the international community, in their view, doing absolutely nothing. And they ask themselves, and they ask the world the question, what have they done to anybody to deserve what's happening to them?
Then we prepared to head back towards Tyre, a long convoy of refugees and media. We had told the Israelis that morning we would be passing this way, but they made it clear they couldn't offer a guarantee of safety in what is a war zone.
They've just landed the shell right beside us.
As we raced away, another shell came in.
There's a UN base just here. Just here. Come to the UN base. Well, get out, get in our cars. Come on now, quick.
My cameraman urged the wounded journalists and some refugees travelling with us to move.
Fergal, get this guy get some stuff on him now. Okay.
This is the panic of war.
Come on. No, leave it. Come on, we'll get shelled again. They will hit us. Come on. Come on. Come on, quick, get us in. Just get in. In the car.
Inside, we gave first aid to the injured.
I want him to talk to me. Nobody else. Okay, it's all right. I'll sort that one. Yeah, I'll sort that one. Okay, your Thomas. How bad is it? Is it pissing blood? No, it's not. It's trickling. It's not an artery. Okay.
Then we raced to the relative protection of a UN base.
Not too tight, not too tight.
There, more refugees joined as the shelling continued. They hoped they'd find a safe way out with us. Instead, we all joined up behind a UN convoy heading to Tyre. We don't know who fired the shells or if it was deliberate. And unlike the refugees, we'd gone by choice into what we knew was a battle zone. For them, it's a perilous road, but the only route out of the madness. Fergal Keane, BBC News, South Lebanon.
Well, Tony Blair and President Bush have set out their plans for ending the fighting in Lebanon. The US Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, is being sent back to the Middle East to hold talks with all sides. And a United Nations meeting to discuss sending an international force to Lebanon is being brought forward to Monday. Nick Robinson, who's travelling with the Prime Minister, sent this report from Washington.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Together, they began the war on terror. Together, they stand against calls for an immediate ceasefire in Lebanon. But together today, they unveiled a plan they claim can produce lasting peace in the Middle East.
Our goal is to achieve a lasting peace, which requires that a free, democratic, and independent Lebanese government be empowered to exercise full authority over its territory. We want a Lebanon free of militias and foreign interference, and a Lebanon that governs its own destiny.
We know why this has occurred. We know what started it. We know what the underlying forces are behind what has happened in the past few weeks. We take this opportunity to set out and achieve a different strategic direction for the whole of that region. The brutal reality of the situation is that we're only going to get violence stopped and stability introduced on the basis of clear principles.
So this is their plan for peace in the Middle East. Tomorrow, the US Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, will return to the region for more talks with Israel and Lebanon. On Monday, the UN will discuss sending a multinational force to southern Lebanon as soon as possible. And the aim is a new United Nations Security Council resolution, possibly next week, to eventually lead to an end to the fighting. And there's a promise too, to help reconstruct Lebanon, to rebuild the infrastructure and the houses that Israel has destroyed. Mr. President, you spoke of having a plan to rebuild houses in Lebanon. Wouldn't the people of Lebanon rather know when you're going to tell the Israelis to stop destroying houses?
Listen, the temptation is to say it's too tough. Let's just try to solve it quickly with something that won't last. Let's just get it off the TV screens. But that won't solve the problem. And it's certainly not going to help the Lebanese citizens have a life that is normal and peaceful.
Those who hoped that this was the day Tony Blair would take on George Bush will be disappointed. Those who believe, though, that they do nothing but back Israel have been proved wrong. To those who said they were doing nothing as Lebanon burned, Tony Blair and George Bush produced an answer today. A plan, a route map, not to an immediate ceasefire, but, they hope, to an eventual end of hostilities. It is, of course, a route map with many obstacles along the way, and the test will not be the talking, but the doing. Nick Robinson, BBC News, at the White House.
Today's talks in Washington would let's assess the impact of those talks with Matt Fry, who's in Washington tonight, and Jeremy Bowen, who's in Beirut. Matt, I'll start with you. To what extent do you think Mr. Bush is sympathetic or even committed to the approach that Mr. Blair brought today?
Well, you saw it with your own eyes, Hugh. No ceasefire, but Tony Blair once again managed to drag George Bush up the aisle to the UN, rather reluctantly, it has to be said. But here he was, the president, talking about a multinational force in southern Lebanon, something that he poo-pooed only 10 days ago at the G8 summit. Here he was talking about a UN resolution. But the point is, Hugh, that we've missed a big opportunity here. All of this could have been said 10 days ago when the Arab League criticized Hezbollah, when Saudi Arabia criticized Hezbollah, and when there was a golden opportunity to consolidate support not just in the Arab world but also in Europe and elsewhere for some sort of solution to this crisis. The fact is that the Israelis, together with the Americans, went for the military option, and the military option in terms of defanging Hezbollah does not seem to be working.
Jeremy, let me turn to you. From where you are in Beirut tonight, you look at the kind of shape of plan that's coming out of Washington. How do you assess that? What prospects do you give it?
I think there are a few questions that need to be answered, as a matter of fact. Since Hezbollah is not being defanged, as Matt put it, the Americans, I think, are trying to accomplish by diplomacy what Israel wants to accomplish on the battlefield, which is eliminating Hezbollah as a military force. But what if they're not eliminated? What happens then? Will Hezbollah voluntarily give up its weapons, its ability to hit Israel? Where would the leverage be? Would the Americans and the Israelis be prepared to do a deal with the Syrians and the Iranians, who are the sponsors of Hezbollah and who George Bush thinks are on the wrong side in the war on terror? And what about foreign governments who are being asked to contribute troops to a multinational force? Would they be prepared to put their troops into Lebanon if they thought that Hezbollah was still standing and might be prepared to attack them? Would they be prepared to risk getting involved in a guerrilla war on behalf of Israel? Now, these questions, as I say, we haven't had the answers to, but I'm sure that behind the scenes they're being asked.
Jeremy Bowen in Beirut and Matt Fry in Washington, thank you both very much. Well, if agreement is reached at the United Nations next week to send in some kind of peacekeeping force to Lebanon, it could take some time to install the troops there. One Israeli commander on the ground said today that it would take a couple of months, not weeks, to drive Hezbollah out of the region completely. He was speaking to our correspondent Richard Bilton, who set off from the village of Shumera today, the first British journalist to cross into Lebanon with the Israeli army.
It's not a war with clear lines. Everything is mixed.
This is the man who commands Israel's Western Front. He took me on a tour of his troops, and the first thing we saw was this. A Katyusha rocket has just hit an artillery position. These attacks are regular in northern Israel, but Colonel Hein says military hits are rare.
What do you think as you look over there? What's your impression? It's nothing. Sorry? It's nothing. It's war, you know. It could be much worse.
But removing this rocket threat is a key part of the Israeli operation. Next, we move to the border. On foot through the hills that look down on Lebanon.
We're sitting on the top of the ridge.
And then we're out at the border, which here in northwest Israel is the front line with Hezbollah.
On the left side of the antenna, there's a Hezbollah outpost. Most of the Katyushas and the mortars in my sector came from the other side of the ridge you see in front of you.
Right, so just the other side of that hill there. He shows us a Hezbollah border post destroyed in the first days of this war. Now, an international force is being suggested for this area of South Lebanon, but a limited UN force has been here since 1978. Colonel Hen says Israel should be allowed to finish the job, and it'll take time.
People just don't understand fighting. There's no instant winning, and I hope that they let us finish the job, because our mission is to protect the civilian population in Israel.
This is the blue line, the divide between Israel and Lebanon, and this was Lebanese territory held by Hezbollah guerrillas. But more than 2 weeks into this confrontation, those fighters have been driven only about a mile away to the hills over there. As the diplomacy is stepped up, this is perhaps a good example of just how long any military campaign could take. Richard Bilton, BBC News, on the Lebanese side of the border.
Well, later in the programme, we'll be talking to two families brought together by this conflict and now having to share a home here in Jerusalem. But for now, let's join you, Darren, in London.
Hugh, thank you. Well, here, a church minister who contacted young boys through the internet and subjected them to serious sexual abuse has been jailed for life. Simon Thomas, who's married with 4 children, admitted 35 separate attacks on boys. He continued to commit offences even after the police and the United Reformed Church had been warned about his activities, as Nick Bryant reports.
Simon Thomas had pleaded guilty to 35 sex offences involving boys. The most serious, 2 charges of raping an 11-year-old. A married man with 4 children of his own, he'd been a highly respected minister in the New Forest town of Hythe for the past decade. But away from his ministerial duties, Thomas was using the internet to groom his young victims, aged between 11 and 15.
We had no idea as a family this was going on. I still can't believe this has actually happened. With the best will in the world, you're not going to be able to stop it. We thought we were doing the right thing, having the computer in the living room. But you can't be in the living room 24 hours a day.
Hampshire police eventually accumulated a mound of incriminating evidence, but they'd originally arrested Thomas 3 years ago after complaints from a local mother. In 2003, he was released on bail, and while free, he committed his most serious offence.
Our child was previously attacked during the time Thomas was on bail. But once again, I would say, when he was released on bail, he was released on bail because we didn't have sufficient evidence to keep him there. As soon as we had the evidence sufficient to rearrest him, he was rearrested.
In summing up, Judge Jeremy Burford QC said that as time went on, Thomas's offences became more serious and the victims he targeted were younger, begging the obvious question: why was he allowed to continue offending when the police had been alerted to his crimes? Nick Bryant, BBC News, at Southampton Crown Court.
The 2 police officers involved in the fatal shooting of a Brazilian man at Stockwell Tube Station in London a year ago are returning to firearms duties. Last week, the Crown Prosecution Service announced that no officers would be charged in connection with the death of Jean-Charles de Menezes last July. Daniel Sanford reports.
The events at Stockwell Underground Station in July last year remain raw and controversial. The official report remains unpublished. But the Crown Prosecution Service decided last week the 2 officers who shot Jean-Charles de Menezes in error will not be charged. It accepted they thought they were killing a suicide bomber, and today it was announced they are going back to their old job. This evening, Scotland Yard said the 2 men had returned to full operational duties, which means they have rejoined their firearms team and they're authorised once more to carry guns and use them if necessary. Jean-Charles' family reacted with disbelief. His cousin said the 2 officers shouldn't be back on the streets with weapons.
It's clear that to bring them to the streets is not a right decision.
Colleagues say that understandably the 2 officers are still deeply affected by their role in the shooting, but former firearms specialists believe they can still do the job.
The memory of what's gone on here is never going to go away. It's always going to affect them. But I would submit that it's not going to stop them carrying out the task to the best of their ability. They were brave on one occasion, they will be brave again.
Since the Stockwell shooting, the Metropolitan Police has worked hard to improve how it handles suspected suicide bombers. But it still faces a trial for failing to provide for the safety of Jean-Charles de Menezes. Daniel Sandford, BBC News.
The TV hypnotist Paul McKenna has won a High Court libel action against the Daily Mirror. Mr. McKenna sued the paper after it claimed that he'd knowingly bought a bogus degree from an American university. Damages will be decided at a later date. After years of war, chaos and corruption, the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo go to the polls on Sunday. It's their first free election for more than 4 decades. The hope is that it could help to end years of conflict in one of Africa's most lawless countries. Most of Congo's factions agreed a ceasefire 3 years ago and joined a power-sharing government. But some opposition groups are boycotting the elections and fighting continues in the diamond-rich east of the country. From Goma, our Africa correspondent Ola Guerin reports.
In Congo, the faithful are getting ready for their prayers to be answered. They've waited a lifetime to vote. Their preachers are asking God for peace during the election. and when it's all over, for peace afterwards. From the air, you get a sense of the scale of Congo, as big as Western Europe, with vast mineral deposits and barely any roads. Congo's been at war with its neighbours and with itself. Deep in the forest, close to 4 million people have died. The United Nations is trying to reach the armed groups still lurking in the bush, dropping leaflets promising money. Those who've given up the gun gather for their payoff. It's £15 a month. There's no accountability for the past and no guarantee for the future. The money stops in a year's time. For now, though, it's buying some stability. But in eastern Congo, you don't need to go far to find trouble. The fighting's never really ended here. This is one of the newest camps for the displaced. People describe a pattern of attacks, atrocities and repeated flight. They've run for their lives time and again, most recently from a militia allied to Rwanda. Kanzi tells us how he lost 5 of his children. They died in the bush over the years, killed by cold, hunger or disease. Now he wants to vote, like the others here, though it's a risky 5-hour walk back to his village. And here's the face to remember, Joseph Kabila, front runner for president. He inherited the job 5 years ago when his father was assassinated. He and his cronies don't control the whole country, but he's seen by many as a vote for stability. As Congo's new day approaches, security is the big question. We joined UN troops fanning out from their base in the east. They're part of the biggest peacekeeping operation in the world. 17,000 troops, now focused on holding this election. The troops have been patrolling throughout the day, and they're going to carry on throughout the night. The United Nations wants to provide a very visible sense of security, to send a message to the people here that the election will go ahead and that it will be safe for them to vote. There's a lot at stake here for the UN, for Congo and for its neighbours. Whatever lies ahead, getting this far is a real achievement. A long-suffering nation is finally about to be heard. Orla Guerin, BBC News, Eastern Congo.
Some sports news now, and England's cricketers have dominated the second day's play in the second test against Pakistan at Old Trafford. Both Alistair Cook and Ian Bell completed their centuries before England declared on 461 for 9. That's a lead of 330 runs. At the close, the tourists were 12 without loss in their second innings. And Jamaica's Assefa Powell produced another world-class performance to win the 100 metres at the Norwich Union London Grand Prix tonight. The joint world record holder won in 9.91 seconds, ahead of Americans Leonard Scott and Sean Crawford. Now let's return to Hugh Edwards in Jerusalem. Hugh, over to you.
Well, this conflict in the space of a few weeks has already displaced many thousands of people, both in Lebanon and here in Israel. Total strangers have been brought together to share a home, and I met some of them today. In the suburbs of Jerusalem, the scene in one family home is being repeated in thousands of others. A few weeks ago, these two women had never met, but today their families share a home. Zipporah wanted to flee the violence in the north, and Bitya agreed to take them in.
We met first time last Thursday. It's like 2 years ago, 10 years ago. Yeah, and since then we are just like one family.
Yes, we are like family, yeah.
And why did you come?
I myself, I couldn't hide it anymore. The children were aware that I myself afraid of. I'm concerned about them more than me, but cannot stay there. And I said, that's it, I'm going, I'm a refugee. I'm on suitcase and moving from one place to another place, and that's not right.
As for the conflict that led to this, well, both women say that the Israeli response is right. They both blame Hezbollah and their Iranian backers.
I don't really think that it's a Lebanese-Israeli problem, because we don't really have a problem, a territorial problem with the Lebanese people or with Lebanon. But I think other forces use them and exploit them.
The children say that they're happy to have left home. They were scared by Hezbollah's rockets. Their adopted grandfather says that a firm military response is the only option.
Those who fight, as it were, in the name of God, etc., that this has to be at least contained.
Is it containable?
I should think so.
In this Israeli home and in millions of others, they see this conflict as part of a worldwide struggle against the forces of terrorism.
We can't let it last for a long time. It has to be finished and quickly for the best, for the benefit of Israel and Lebanon and the whole area, and maybe even for the whole world.
Some of the voices in Jerusalem today. John Simpson, our World Affairs editor, is with me once again. John, can we look ahead? Condoleezza Rice coming back. What can she achieve?
Well, the first thing I think we've got to remember is she's not coming here for a ceasefire. It's quite clear after the Bush-Blair operation today that both of those leaders, but particularly the Americans, want to see Hezbollah defeated in some way, pushed back, humiliated, defeated still. So no time for a ceasefire, this, as far as the Americans are concerned. I think what her main concern is going to be on this trip is actually not so much the Israel side as the Lebanese side, trying to persuade the Lebanese to accept the notion of this multinational force. It's not going quickly, it's not going to be easy, and she's not going to be looking for any kind of quick way out of this, because it's not going to be a short-term process.
Important to underline that, John, isn't it? Because some people have been talking in terms of days, maybe a couple of weeks, but sorting this out in the round will take much longer than that.
Yes, it will. Mr. Blair needed the language of immediacy today in Washington from President Bush, and he got that. But it was just the language, I think. It's going to take a long time to get an international force operating in a difficult set of circumstances like Lebanon. And you have to remember that the Israeli campaign itself not going very fast. They haven't achieved any of their major objectives so far, and they're getting a little bit worried about that. So I think we've got to assume that the shells and the bombs are going to be raining down on Lebanon for some time yet.
John, thank you very much. Well, the 10 o'clock news hour continues now on BBC News 24 with tomorrow's papers, a business roundup for you, and in Sports Day at 10:30, the Tour de France winner, Floyd Landis, protests his innocence after that failed drugs test. And on BBC One, Darren will be back with the headlines after we've joined our news teams where you are. Bye for now.
Hello there and a very good evening to you. I'm Jenny Kirk. First tonight, at least 16 families are on hunger strike at Yarlswood Immigration Centre. Some are protesting about the conditions their children are being kept in. Others are protesting about deportation. Social services may get involved because the children are hungry. Earlier this week, the prison inspector criticised Yarlswood's provisions for youngsters. A man has been stabbed to death in Corby in broad daylight. It happened just before 2 o'clock this afternoon in an area between Everest Lane and Corporation Street. A man has been arrested on suspicion of murder. A teenager from Northamptonshire is still missing 2 days after disappearing on a school trip in South America. Aaron Goss from Rushden was with a party of friends from Wollaston School. Specialist search teams have been scouring the river in eastern Ecuador, where he was last seen. Northamptonshire County Director of Cricket has left the club in the middle of a match with Essex. Kepler Vessels has been in charge at Wantage Road for 3 years, but the teams had a particularly bad season, being out of the C&G Trophy, the 2020 and bottom of the county championship. It's believed the players revolted in the dressing room. Well, BBC Look East spoke to him yesterday before the split, and he didn't deny there was unrest.
I'll be very disappointed if after the run of results we've had, if the dressing room was happy, because that would just be a sure sign of people who don't really want to achieve. I mean, I would expect people to be very unhappy.
A project to help homeless people rebuild their lives is underway in Cambridge, but it doesn't advertise itself. In fact, most people don't even realise it's there.
The people pouring over Elizabeth Way Bridge are busy people on the school run and the dash to work. But just beneath their wheels, people are quietly getting their lives back on track. Cuz, Pascal and the others live underneath the bridge. The Jubilee project saw the space doing nothing and saw a home for those who'd lost theirs. The telly's on in the evening, but 9 till 5, everyone's at work at the project's tile workshop. Pascal gets the minimum wage. The hostel charges him £70 a week rent. No job, no bed. It's a deal he was glad to take up.
The environment, yeah, it's a lot better actually, because you're doing something during the day. You don't just sit around and be bored. So, yeah, it's a lot better than it was before, really, to be honest. Better for me, sort of environment-wise and support-wise. It just suited me lots better.
And having a job makes everything easier. It meant former resident Simon could finally get a flat of his own.
It was all I'd ever wanted, really. I'm excited about the future, I really am. You know, I'm off on my feet now, running. I've got my own place and just getting to work now, and that's me.
On to football news then, and Luton Town have been busy in the transfer market tonight. They've signed a replacement for striker Steve Howard. He's Adam Boyd, and he joins from Hartlepool for £500,000. And the Milton Keynes Dons had a successful pre-season friendly this evening. They beat Brighton 4-1 at the National Hockey Stadium. And thousands of fans are expected at Silverstone this weekend to see Sir Stirling Moss join the sport's other knight, Sir Jackie Stewart, as they battle it out as part of the circuit's classic race weekend.
It's an enthusiast's dream, from 1920 sports cars to something a little more powerful. On show, some of the most valuable racing machinery in the world.
My name is Nigel Webb, and I'm a Jaguar enthusiast. I've got a small collection of cars, and this is one of them, and I'm lucky enough to be able to race it occasionally at fabulous doers like this.
Over the course of the weekend, fans will see 22 races, while the 600-plus array of cars and bikes mean it'll be one of the largest paddocks ever assembled at Silverstone.
I prefer this to Grand Prix. It's a lot of boring old stuff on the television. This is much better.
Well, it's a fabulous event. It's nice to see it coming back again onto the schedule for the year. Always enjoy coming to Silverstone. It's a great circuit.
Now, each race at the Silverstone Classic weekend is named after some of the world's most famous drivers who ruled the crowds here at Silverstone for the last 56 years.
And they don't get much bigger than this man.
Cars of all eras are here. I mean, this one I'm on now is about 1954 or so, and I think it's really beautiful. Fast, people think, you know, because it's old, it isn't fast. This car should do over 150.
Despite being at the ripe old age of 76, Sir Stirling's more than determined to show his army of followers he still has what it takes.
I'm certainly out there trying to win, I can tell you that. I don't know if I will or not, but no, I mean, when the flag goes down, I want to win. I want to beat all these youngsters particularly.
And that's the beauty of Silverstone's classic meeting. After all, where else could you see a posse of would-bes taking on Mr. Motor Racing himself? Pam Melbourne, BBC Look East, Silverstone.
Well, it should be a great weekend, shouldn't it? And it was certainly nice weather in Northamptonshire. Let's have a look at what it's up to tonight, because it's going to stay fairly dry and clear. There could be a few mist patches around, but they will be light, and the temperature will just go down to 16 Celsius, that's 61 Fahrenheit. Tomorrow will be mostly dry and sunny, getting a bit hazier later, but staying warm with temperatures up to 12 Celsius, that's 81 Fahrenheit. So that's the way the west of our region looks tonight. We'll have bulletins on Saturday and Sunday for you, but from me for now, and the rest of the Late Team, enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.
Tonight's main headline again, Tony Blair and George Bush have agreed a plan to try to win support for a multinational force to be sent to Lebanon, but there was no call for an immediate ceasefire. Well, Newsnight starting now on BBC Two, but from all of us on the 10 o'clock team, good night.
Good evening. One more hot day for eastern England, but the heatwave's on its way out. It's back to normal British summer weather for the outlook. Cooler, breezier, there'll be some rain at times too. And tomorrow, most of the rain will be over on the western side of the UK. Bit of a west-east split because eastern areas hold on to the sunshine longest. Now you can see the cloud beginning to mass out west. Now, much of this cloud is actually quite high and innocuous, but it's thick enough to produce some rain this evening across Northern Ireland, and gradually overnight as the cloud edges in, we'll see some damp weather just getting into western coastal fringes of Scotland, the western fringes of England and Wales. But most of the country, as you can see, will have a dry night, not as oppressively sticky as it has been. Temperatures evening out at around about the mid to high teens generally. Now tomorrow, as I mentioned, is going to be another sunny and hot day for East Anglia and the South East in particular, but to eastern Scotland starting off fine and bright. Out west though, cloudy, that dampness getting its act together and starting to move its way eastwards into the west of Scotland, Wales and western England too. For the test match at Old Trafford, a bright sunny start, clouding over, and I don't think we'll get a full evening session in. The rain clouds will arrive. Of course, you can catch all the action on BBC Radio. Here comes the cloud and eventually the rain into the Greater Manchester area, but to the east of the Pennines, I think we'll hold on to some brightness. 24 degrees, very pleasant in Newcastle. Fine too for Aberdeenshire, but deteriorating out west. Some wet weather getting into Glasgow, the breeze picking up too, and it's not looking a clever day for Northern Ireland. There'll be rain around for much of the day. Might brighten up in the evening, but don't hold your breath. Clouding over and turning increasingly wet for Wales too. Quite a gusty southerly wind. That'll ruffle up the waves to some extent, as you can see. And for southwest England as well, it's going to be a damp and breezy end to the day. Whereas over in the London area and up towards Norwich, it's going to be another lovely day. 26 to 28 degrees. Now, as we go into the evening, the cloud and rain will continue to push its way eastwards. That said, there won't be a lot of rain reaching the southeast overnight, but as we go into Sunday morning, it'll have another little go. Some heavier rain perhaps pushing up from France. So a wet start to Sunday across this part of the world. That rain might take a while to clear away, but it will do eventually. Bright and breezy weather pushing in from the west, but temperatures on the slide, and we'll continue that theme into the early part of the coming week. Breezier, cooler, with some rain around as well. So the message through the weekend for all of us, it will feel fresher at last. Good night.
Film comedy next on BBC One. Steve Martin is bringing down the house.
After the 31st of July, you'll no longer be able to buy your TV licence at the post office. Instead, you can get one at over 15,000 local shops, from convenience stores to petrol stations, wherever you see the PayPoint sign. Look out for more information next time we write to you, or visit tvlicensing.co.uk.
The best thing about being a postman...
Will you marry me? What do you mean, no?
You can always count on your mates.
Can I stay? No one cares if you're Mr. and Mrs. I care!
Sorted.
You won't meet a better man than Mark Dexter.
Tuesday at 9 on BBC One.
We've climbed every mountain, searched high and low. And now the hills are alive with the sound of hundreds of hopefuls. Next.
I know I can do it. Go away.
Andrew Lloyd Webber needs a Maria.
We're
just looking for a star.
How do you solve a problem like Maria? Tomorrow at 6:50 on BBC One.
Man, I'm a hot boy.
So you're a recruiter?
That I am. Who that is? He burning up.
I broke! Everybody breaks!
The Recruit, a network premiere tomorrow at 9:25 on BBC One.
Logging on to find love. Now on BBC One, Steve Martin gets more than he bargains for.